Welcome to the regular meeting of the Villa Park City Council. I hereby call the meeting to order. And Steve, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Fasenelli.
Present.
Councilman Nelson.
Here.
Councilman Pitts.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rossini.
Here.
Mayor Colacott.
Here.
All present.
Okay, to open our council meeting, we continue our tradition of inviting Villa Park distinguished citizens to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight, we are pleased that Bob Connell has accepted our invitation. And Bob, would you step up, please? We especially like to honor our veterans as their efforts while in harm's way have protected our freedoms, including our right to recite the pledge. Bob Connell was born and raised in Ocala, which is in the 1940s was a small central Florida town known as the horse capital of the world. Bob worked summers as an exercise jockey on a large horse breeding farm in Ocala and has exercised two former Kentucky Derby and Preakness winners, Needles and Carrie Back. After graduation from Ocala High School, Bob enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. Following boot camp in Parris Island, South Carolina, he served 4 years on active duty at locations such as Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, Boston Naval Shipyard, Camp Pendleton, California, and his last duty station, Long Beach Naval Shipyard in California. His military occupation was infantry and later military police. On completion of active duty and military service in 1963, Bob headed south again and studied at the University of Florida, where he graduated with a business degree. He was recruited by IBM and worked in various marketing functions. In 1966, while assigned to an IBM facility in San Jose, California, Bob met his future bride, Elaine O'Brien. They were married in 1967 and have just celebrated 50 years of marriage. Congratulations to both of you. In 1969, Bob became vice president of an advertising agency, and the Connells moved to Southern California. One of Bob's clients at the agency was Carl's Jr. In 1971, Carl Karcher, the founder and CEO of the restaurant chain, introduced Bob to a promising new startup called Fluid Master, an Anaheim manufacturer of plumbing products. Bob spotted a winner and ultimately joined the company as vice president of marketing. During Bob's tenure as vice president and later as CEO, Fluid Master, now headquartered in San Juan Capistrano, grew from $10 million to over $250 million in both domestic and international sales, a 20-fold increase. The Connells moved to Villa Park in 1976, where they raised their two daughters, Stephanie and Lisa, both graduates of Villa Park High School. Bob and Elaine are now proud grandparents of three robust grandsons. With Bob busy traveling the world establishing international sales, Elaine became involved in our community. She has been active in the Villa Park Women's League, the Assistance League of Orange, and the Orange County Performing Arts Crescendo Guild. While raising her daughter, she coached softball, served as a Girl Scout leader, and a PTA member. Since Bob's retirement from Fluid Master, the Connells have enjoyed spending time with family and friends, sailing their sloop, Hotel California, through the Eastern Caribbean islands, and spending time at their vacation home in Park City, Utah. Bob has also embarked on a new career as an author. He recently finished writing a fictional historical novel, The Hindsight Project, which will be published and released in July. And this is the draft of the cover of that new book. Bob is in discussions with the Friends of the Villa Park Library about an August book signing party, and I, for one, cannot wait to read it. I'm now honored to introduce Bob Connell, Villa Park distinguished citizen, veteran, businessman, and author, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll now have our photo taken with our distinguished citizen. Bob?
Steve, is there a typo on the agenda? We have the wrong, I want to make sure that everyone knows, we have the wrong name on the agenda who we're honoring.
Yes, there was a change the last minute. The individual was unable to do it, so at the post-publishing of the agenda, Mayor Colacott indicated he had a change in the
Okay, well, we'll make sure, I want the public to know who it is we're actually acknowledging.
Bob, do you have it in the diet somewhere?
I trust it. I'll trust you. So just while everybody's going up to the dais, let me announce on closed session, we did discuss a closed session item of anticipated litigation, significant exposure, actually a case of good file. It's the Santa Ana lawsuit against all the various cities in Orange County. The council took no action other than granting Rattan and Tucker a conflict waiver on a unanimous vote due to potential future conflicts. And that is all.
I had a pin up here.
Mayor, the next item we have on the, next item we have is pertaining to our fireworks ordinance. As you'll recall, we sell, allow safe and sane fireworks to be sold in the city of Villa Park. The way,
Oh, just have one last announcement before you begin. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all for attending our meeting tonight. And at this time, I'd like all those in the audience to please silence your cell phones or turn them off if possible. The Villa Park City Council and staff welcome you to this meeting. We encourage your participation. If you wish to address the City Council, please complete and submit a speaker card to the city clerk before the scheduled meeting time. Speaker cards can be found at the entrance to the City Council chambers, and speakers will be limited to a time period of 5 minutes. Okay, sorry.
I'm sorry, going back, the first item we have to, business is the dealing with the fireworks ordinance. As you recall, the ordinance allows for the permitting of 3 different stands. The first stand goes, the first 2 stands are designated. The third is either assigned to an applicant, or it goes to, if there is, in the event that there are multiple applicants, we have a lottery. In this case, this year, we do have a lottery. The 2 additional applicants are the Villa Park High School Marching Spartans and the Villa Park Gridiron Boosters. So at the ordinance calls, when there is an extra or one that we do it, the next regular we conduct a lottery. So we have, in the past, I guess Councilwoman Fastenlight did, we flipped a coin. We could do a lottery by drawing it, but I think we'll flip a coin is the easiest. So if you want to step out, we can decide what we want to do and take care of that order of business real quick.
Flip the coin, and let's see.
I don't have a coin.
Are the
I
applicants
got
here?
my allowance.
Yes, I believe.
Football's here.
I
The band
believe
here?
football here, and I did contact the Marching Spartans, but I don't know if they're. So we need to designate which side's which.
Okay. So you want to come up here? Sure. Okay. So here's heads, here's tails, and call heads or tails.
And it is, so the Villa Park Gridiron Boosters. That'll be recorded in the minutes. We'll notify both parties.
Okay, I'd like to use this time to remind everyone to celebrate the 4th of July safely, and that any and all use of fireworks not certified as safe and sane by the California State Fire Marshal are prohibited in the city of Villa Park and will be strictly enforced. Okay, we now move on to presentations. And our first presentation is by Heather Strathman from the Association of California Cities, Orange County.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Heather Stratman. I have the pleasure of serving as the Chief Executive Officer for the Association of California Cities, Orange County. And my intention with my presentation tonight is to give you a brief and quick overview and then answer any questions related to ACCOC's current scope of work as it pertains to the city of Villa Park. Do I have a clicker?
No, we don't, actually. We're,
I'll just, okay.
just let her know when.
Okay, I'm ready for the next one. As a just a context setting for all of you and the audience, the Association of California Cities Orange County represents the interests of Orange County cities on regional public policy issues. We do this through what I consider 3 legs of a stool. The first being education that empowers. We believe strongly in ensuring that the 178 council members throughout this county have emerging and sophisticated educational opportunities so that you can make the best decisions for your communities. Our second leg is this idea of policy collaboration. How can we work together among 34 cities to find opportunities to create efficiencies, both financially and from a staff resource perspective, that empower your communities and bring us all together in terms of dealing with some of these very challenging regional issues that we're all facing. And then lastly, advocacy. We work very, very hard at the state and federal level, and even at times at the more regional county level, whether that be with AQMD or SCAG or other large entities that are influencing policy that then therefore influences the city of Villa Park. How can we work to fight for your interests? And so advocacy is a big part of our mission. I want to touch on sober living efforts. I've spoken to this council before on our efforts relating to sober living. We can call it sober living, or we can call it residential recovery reform, either one. But we have been highly engaged in this issue for several years now, and that has taken on a much greater importance. Our communities here in Orange County are being disproportionately impacted by sober living homes and sober living facilities. And just to clarify on the definition of that, sober living homes, those being 6 beds and under, sober living facilities, 6 beds and over, and providing health and medical services. We sponsored a piece of legislation, AB 572. It is become a 2-year bill. It would create a pilot program through the California State Legislature to actually have a Department of Healthcare Services inspector here located in Orange County. Why is that so important? Because we have hundreds of sober living homes and facilities that are not routinely inspected based on your code and compliance measures. And this runs across every city in Orange County. The idea came to us from Costa Mesa, who has what we approximate is 350 sober living homes in their community alone, and they can't even get into those homes just to ensure that fire and public safety measures are being appropriately addressed. So we would like to have a Department of Healthcare Services inspector here located, boots on the ground. They're all in Sacramento today, and if the city of Villa Park was to call and make a complaint, it would probably take them on average a year to get back to you. We find that unacceptable for our cities, and we're fighting hard on that legislation. We're also actively engaged on legislation that is being authored by Senator Pat Bates, which would prohibit patient brokering. Patient brokering is happening across this nation, where basically vulnerable groups of substance abuse individuals are actually sort of being targeted and then brought into these homes by individuals who should not be treating for them. So we are working very hard to support Senator Bates and her efforts. And on federal advocacy, this is a very challenging issue. Sober living homes and facilities are protected by both the American Disabilities Act and by the Fair Housing Act. And in order to actually deal with our larger holistic issues on sober living home and facilities, we need to address those issues at the federal level. So we are working with our Orange County delegation to try to push some ideas forward, and I'm going to touch on those in a minute. And then beyond that, we have formed a nationwide coalition through a partnership with the Florida State Attorney, and he is someone who we actually testified in Congress with last fall, and it became a synergy. Florida is dealing with much of the same issues as Orange County, probably much related to our weather and climate. And then we are pushing out a lot of education and outreach material through opinion and editorial partnerships and national publications. So just to touch on these a little bit further, we've taken a strong support position on AB 3162. This is authored by Assemblymember Friedman, and this would basically say that you are not to provide medical services outside of the sober living home or facility that you are actually operating within. And the reason that this is so important is that I'm going to use this actually a city outside of Orange County, because we have been partnering with this city over the last 24 months on this piece of legislation. The city of Malibu was basically being overtaken. You would find compounds in their cul-de-sacs where you had sober living home after sober living home, and then those patients were being transported to a sober living facility for actually healthcare services. This bill would stop that. It would basically say you have to provide services for those patients within the home that they reside. And we think this is an important piece of legislation to basically stop this, just chain of cul-de-sac buying up of compounds. We believe that this bill has a very high success rate of actually passing this year, and this would be the first bill in nearly 20 years that would make it to the governor's desk for consideration. We're also deeply engaged in legislative advocacy, federal legislative advocacy related to a report that was just published in March of this year. The Government Accounting Office published a report that was very focused on patient brokering and ways to remedy that. And Senator Feinstein has sent a formal request to Governor Brown to ensure that that patient brokering legislation make its way to the state level. And then lastly, H.R. 5100, this is being authored. It's a bipartisan piece of legislation that would basically establish a model of quality standards in order for organizations to receive certifications as a recovery home through state and local governments. So this would give you back the power to permit and license these facilities. Moving along to our homelessness efforts, these are just some very basic stats, but I do want to draw your attention to that last bullet point there of $120 million spent by cities in FY 14-15. This was 13 of 34 cities reporting $120 million spent. We know that number is much higher, and those numbers continue to rise significantly. So what are we doing about it? ACCOC has supported what we call the 2700 Permanent Supportive Housing Unit Plan. Just to give some brief background on this, today in Orange County, permanent supportive housing is completely full. We have 2,600 units. And what does that mean? That means that our shelters are overcrowded because we simply do not have flow in our system to move folks out of shelters and into permanent supportive housing. What is permanent supportive housing? It is intended to support those with chronic mental illness and chronic health conditions. And we know a significant number of our homeless population suffers from either both or one of the two. We rolled out this 2,700 unit plan on February 15th of this year, and to date, we have sited 2,000 of those 2,700 units across this county. That means cities are stepping up, they're engaged, and they're highly supportive of this plan. The second step of that was to create a business plan. How do you fund 2,700 units? We approximate that it will cost us across this county $800 million to fund 2,700 units. And so what we are looking at is the formation of an Orange County Housing Trust through special legislation that would include cities who want to participate and include cities who don't want to participate. And in collaboration with the County of Orange and through their leadership, we would go after new state funding opportunities. So this means we wouldn't be increasing taxes, and we would be aggressively pursuing the state funding that is coming through both the housing bond and the 2017 housing package that was approved by the legislature and the governor. Moving on to pension efforts and our next steps here, my second vice president of the board, a council member out of the city of Newport Beach, Diane Dixon, is really spearheading our pension efforts. And what we are waiting for at this point is basically a holding pattern until the California Supreme Court rules on a Marin County case that would define the California rule, which would basically say, okay, what do we promise to former employees under CalPERS, right? So can we provide benefits based on being bilingual? Well, being bilingual while you were in office or while you were holding your position was incredibly valuable, but in retirement, is that still valuable, and should we be paying for those services? The Supreme Court is expected to rule this summer, and from there, I anticipate 2019 and going forward will be strong efforts to start to really look at how we hold the California pension system together. It is it's in a weak and very vulnerable position right now, and we are looking for opportunities to try to find relief for our cities as pension costs are going through the roof. I'll use the city of Huntington Beach as an example. This year, their pension cost was $35.6 million. By 2022, it will rise to $58 million a year. Unsustainable, and we have to find solutions. So we're looking at all sorts of things like the Section 115 trust formation, which can be an administrative action through CalPERS and does not require special legislation. We have established significant interactions with CalPERS staff. We took our first journey up there last August, and they said to us, wow, you're the first group of local government officials that have been here in years, which said a lot to us. And so we took that a step further, and we have been building significant relationships with the CalPERS board members themselves, and we've met with 9 of the 13 of them to date. How do you get involved, and how do you influence what we're doing? We have a variety of opportunities through our policy committees, everything from infrastructure and technology to our residential recovery forum, economic development, and our legislative committee itself that meets monthly. All of these policy formations and direction feeds back into our board of directors, which then ultimately gives me direction in terms of what policies we pursue. And then lastly, I would just remind the council of the cost benefit of your membership dues. Your membership dues are roughly $5,900 a year. But what comes with that are numerous model ordinances, white papers, the advocacy efforts that we focus on, and our educational forums and beyond. I believe strongly in what ACCOC is doing for this county. I think that we are at the forefront of some very, very challenging regional issues, and we encourage all of you as council members to be involved with us, to give us feedback, and to participate as actively as possible so that we can have your voice at the table. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next presentation is from the Orange County Sheriff's Department.
Look who's back.
Good to be back.
Like a bad penny.
It's an honor to be before the council one more time. Captain Puckett, Orange County Sheriff's Department.
I'm sorry, what was that title again, sir?
Captain Puckett,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Very happy to see the council and very happy to read you the crime report that's coming. This is one of the lowest crime months that I've definitely seen for Villa Park. You had a total of 4 Part 1 crimes for the month of April. And again, if we had locked our cars, you would have had 1 Part 1 crime for the month. So I would say your chief, from my assessment, appears to be doing a good job. And he sends his regrets for not being here today, but we ordered him to go to an incident management school. Fire season is upon us, and we want to make sure the city is as protected as it can be. So with that, you had 1 vehicle burglary on the 9th on the 18,000 block of Jocatall, where numerous items were taken from a locked car. You had 1 grand theft on the 10,000 block of Old Lampliner Lane, where a purse, watch, wallet, passport, and keys were taken from an unlocked car. And you had 2 petty thefts, one from the 9,000 block of Bryan Mawr, where a cell phone was taken from an unlocked car, and another one from the 10,000 block of Orange Grove, where a wallet was taken from an unlocked car. You had a total of 401 calls for service for the month, 4 non-injury traffic accidents, and citations are up with 47 moving traffic citations and 12 parking citations. And that concludes my crime report. Are there any questions?
Any questions from council?
Glad to see you.
Thank you.
Congratulations again.
Good to see everybody again.
Well
Thank you.
deserved, sir.
Okay, is there anyone here from the Orange County Fire Authority? Okay. Villa Park Library. Samantha.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council people. And hello, everyone. I'm Samantha Smith, Branch Manager of the Villa Park Library. So right now, the library is getting ready for our annual summer reading program. The summer reading program runs from June 19th through July 29th. It's presented by OC Public Libraries and the Villa Park Library. The program's funded by the County of Orange, the Friends of the Villa Park Library, and community donations. This year, in addition to the reading component, we'll be offering a lot of fun programming for children, teens, and adults. On Thursday, June 19th at 10 a.m., we're partnering with OC Sheriff's Department to bring you Reading with the Deputy. All children and families are welcome to join us and listen to stories read by OC Sheriff's deputies. Deputies will be here to read stories and talk about safety. On June 21st, we're excited to bring you a library luau, which will feature hula lessons and a brief history of Hawaii and the history of the hula. This is for children, families, and anyone who'd like to come. It will be a fun event, and we really encourage attendance. On Saturday, June 30th at 9 a.m., we're having a computer class for kids. This is a beginning class just to encourage kids to get familiar with typing skills and Microsoft Word. Also, we're having computer classes not just for kids, but also computer classes for adults as well. On July 14th, we're having a social media class for adults. It's going to give an overview of various social media sites and discuss, why you might want to have a particular site or why you may not. And it's free, but registration is required as space is limited. On Saturday, July 28th, we'll be hosting a best-selling author, Michelle Gable. She will be here to talk about her books, including her newest book titled The Summer I Met Jack. So that'll be a big event, our author visit this summer. This is just some of the highlights and the numerous events we'll be offering this summer. And if you're interested in learning more, please visit our library and pick up a summer reading flyer. Or you can visit our website at ocpl.org and check out the library's calendar for an up-to-date listing of all of our events. Right now, as you may know, we're undergoing our redesign. We're still undergoing this process. It's taking a little bit longer than expected. We're about midway right now, and we really appreciate everyone's patience. The books are all still here, but when you visit the library, they may be on a cart instead of on a shelf. So if you need any assistance, please ask library staff. We're taking a lot of before pictures so that we can display our before and after pictures once the job is completed. And we look forward to inviting people to an event once the library is completed. The month of May has been a busy month. This month we held a genealogy program. We have held over 8 story times and had over 100 attendees at these story times. We processed 16 interlibrary loans, and many people may not know that the library can get books from any city, county, state, all across the United States. So this month we processed about 16 of those coming in from other states and different areas. This month the library acquired some new and exciting databases. We now offer lynda.com, a leading online learning platform that helps anyone learn business, software, technology, and creative skills to achieve personal and professional goals. We also acquired Universal Class, which offers 500 online continuing education courses. I personally have taken one of these classes and found it to be really a great course. They offer everything from serious courses on computer training to how to do hairstyles, how to garden, really a variety of courses. So this concludes my report for this month. Does anyone have any questions?
What was the date and time of the Read a Book with a Deputy?
Oh, that will be on Tuesday, June 19th at 10 a.m.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you again for your report. Okay, we now move into council member meeting attendance reports. The first is the Orange County Mosquito and Vector Control District.
That would be me. This past month, we had a rather interesting thing happen at the Vector Control District. We had a trustee training day. We think that being trustees, we should know something about what's happening with the district. And so they had this training day. They took us out to the field in the morning. We stopped in Santa Ana and looked how they treated some storm drains and some traps in there. And then we went to Huntington Beach and looked at 2 wetlands areas and how they treat wetland areas and some different types of mosquito traps they had there. We came back to the office and we heard from 2 relatively new positions the district has hired. One is an educator that goes out into the schools and teach 4th graders about vector controls. In fact, they've had a presentation here at Villa Park Elementary School. And that was really interesting, even though it may have been over the head of some of us since it was for 4th graders. The second one was an urban manager that we had to help cities in dealing with storm drains treatments. And we heard a speaker from the Orange County Public Health Department that talked about how the health department works with the Vector Control District, because both of them are really public health agencies. And we got to tour the laboratory. We got to see breeding some mosquito fish. Some mosquito fish are eating larvae, and getting to view some mosquitoes, some really tiny mosquitoes under microscopes that make them look like really big mosquitoes. But it was a really interesting day to see what are some of the things that our men and women out in the field do every day. That was my
Thank you.
report. Is there any questions regarding that?
Okay, any questions? Okay. Next report is from the Orange County Sanitation District, and I'm the representative. On April 25th, I represented the city at the meeting of the Orange County Sanitation District Board of Directors. At this meeting, the board approved a 10-year energy management services agreement, and this agreement calls for the installation, operation, and maintenance of a battery storage system that will improve power reliability and reduce power costs to the district. I believe the savings will be on the order of $400 million annually, so this is significant. On May 2nd, I participated in the meeting of the Operations Committee of the Orange County Sanitation District. In addition to routine collection and treatment system, maintenance and operation matters, an update on the capital improvement program was provided to the committee. And that concludes my report. Next is Orange County Fire Authority.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. On April 26th, I attended the regular board meeting of the Orange County Fire Authority, and topics of interest that evening that are not of closed session matters was the fact that the Orange County Fire Authority is trying to raise awareness about drowning prevention. We're coming into the summer months, and we all need to be very, very careful if we own a pool or if we have neighbors who have a pool. Make sure we're careful and supervise children, not swim alone. Make sure our gates and our fences are up to code. And they're just trying to raise awareness about drowning prevention. It's all too unfortunate and often that there are drownings in Orange County, and most, if not all, are preventable. Other matters, myself and Director Al Murray were appointed as alternates to the Orange County Fire Authority Executive Committee, much to my wife's chagrin. And we had an update on the Reserve Firefighter Training Program and its status. Lastly, we approved and adopted the Canyon Fire 2 After Action Report, which was a summary and review of what went on, firefighting actions, both those that were that saved houses and saved lives, but also those that, frankly, could have been better. On May 1st, I attended the Human Resources Committee meeting, and numerous closed session personnel matters were discussed, and that's about it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Next committee report is the Orange County Library Advisory Board.
No meeting.
No meeting. Budget and Finance,
No meeting.
Community Development and Public Safety.
I just passed over City School Advisory.
Oh, excuse me.
So, as part of the City School Advisory Committee, when we invite the PTAs and the PFSOs and the teachers and so on, we get a lot of ideas about their clubs and stuff. So this month, what we had is, we had a Girl Scout troop come to here. There were about 12 or 13 Girl Scouts, and they got a tour of City Hall and how government is run here. And so the sheriffs happened to be here this time, so this was great. And it lasts about 45 minutes. We come in here, I teach them all about how our local government works. They ask me questions. We go around, we meet the staff. The sheriffs happened to be here that day. We came in, they, actually asked them, they wanted to know if they had arrested anybody that day. So they ask very, very great questions. And then we go out into the back and we do a flag salute because they're earning a badge. And we have a flagpole and we have a flag, and we also have an old, rusty bell that was provided to us by a resident. They found it in their backyard and they donated it to the city. And this bell, they come out here, we do the flag salute, they ring the bell, and they all think it's just absolutely wonderful. And we end it by sitting up here, and they all envision themselves being mayor one day, and it was a great meeting. Steve had a good time with these girls. So that is my City School Advisory Committee report today.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay.
Community development.
Okay, community development and public safety.
We did not have a meeting.
Um,
Public safety is different, isn't it?
Yeah. Let's see, Friends of the Villa Park Library, the librarian already gave the report, but one additional piece of information that came through since our meeting was that the Friends of the, or that the Friends have received a gift of about $1,440 from the proceeds of the Villa Park Women's League fundraiser. So thank you very much for that. Infrastructure Management Advisory Committee, we met on last Thursday, and we discussed, in addition to the updates to the infrastructure management activities, we discussed establishing monuments for, to monitor a wall over off of Cannon that's collapsed twice in the past, and also some updates to our paving contract that may assist us in the future. Invest-
Excuse me, Mayor, could you repeat that? You, something about watching the wall? What was that
Yeah, to
about?
monitor the stability of the wall.
Is there a problem with the cannon wall?
No, we want to make sure that it is staying stable. And we've asked for the guidance from the Infrastructure Management Advisory Committee as to whether establishing a couple of survey monuments just to see if there's any movement behind the wall so that we can ensure that, you know, if there is a problem in the future, that we can catch it early before it does collapse.
Okay, thank you.
Investment Advisory Committee,
No meeting.
no meeting. Law Enforcement Advisory Committee,
No meeting.
Public Safety,
No meeting.
Public Works and Engineering, no meeting, and Villa Park Community Services Foundation.
Still working on, the group is working on the summer and fall events that are coming up, doing some planning there. The Executive Steering Committee for the foundation is going through design reviews on the new on the potential for the new community center. So we're working with the architect on the designs, and I'm kind of excited about some of the renditions that he's put forward. So hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to share those with everybody.
Do we have a date for the boat parade yet? Because we've got a lot of school committees that have
Well-
already now booked the dates in December that won't be able to participate. I mean, we've been waiting.
Yeah, they were going back and forth about it last month, so hopefully tomorrow night the meeting is tomorrow night, so hopefully tomorrow night they'll decide on the final
We
dates.
we lost some big
for Santa-
groups.
Santa's parade and also the boat parade.
Thank you.
Okay. And one last committee report, Human Resources,
No meeting.
no meeting, okay. Okay,
Can I
Yes.
make one more comment
Sure.
before we go? I'd like to wish Deanna happy birthday. I guess yesterday was your birthday, so happy birthday from all of us.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we now move on to public comments. At this time, members of the public may address the council on any off-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council, provided that no action may be taken on off-agenda items unless authorized by law. Opportunities will also be provided for public comment on each agenda item, and comments are limited to 5 minutes per person and 30 minutes for all comments. Do we,
Yes.
City Manager, do we have any comments?
Yes, we have a Mark Kulai and Principal Little from Villa Park Elementary.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Colacott. Good evening, council members. We're so happy to be here with you tonight. My name is Rayanne Little. I'm the principal of Villa Park Elementary, just a few blocks down from you here. And I have with me Mark Kulai, who is a longtime community resident. We're here today to extend an invitation to all to attend our historic bell dedication ceremony that will be taking place next Tuesday evening, May the 29th. I know our council members have already, or should have already, received a personal invitation, but we want to extend that throughout the community. We have several additional flyers for you as well. As most of our residents know, on our campus of Villa Park Elementary, we had a beautiful old school building that many in the community loved and tried for many years to preserve. Unfortunately, that was not to be, but as that building came down in this last year, we wanted to ensure that our students in our community remembers that history and that legacy. So we do have the bell from that school building that has been preserved with a lot of care by our facilities department, and it will be installed on our campus this coming week. We recognize that this is not only our legacy as a school, but part of your legacy as a city, so we welcome all to participate in this. The activities will begin at 5:30 p.m. with the dedication at 6 p.m. Our open house will follow, so all in the community are welcome. And Mr. Kula, you have a word to say?
I just wanted to say, when the parents of Villa Park Elementary took this up about 1.5 years ago, we knew it was a contentious issue in the past. But honestly, as I had met with so many different groups and so many individual conversations, I had found really great conversation. We really felt like we'd worked together on this. And the building came down, which was sad, but we've still worked together. This past summer, I'm very excited about the fact that the community has come together. And then again, a couple weeks ago, we've been fundraising for a plaque on that. We have a nice likeness of the building on the side of the plaque with the bell, which the OUSD has done a really great job restoring and replacing this bell. It's gorgeous. So I'm excited about the fact that we've got a community, we've got parents, we've got the community, we've got the district all coming together on an event. You'll be hard pressed to find something that was contentious, that was controversial at one time, and now it's collaborative. We all work together, and you'll see that on Tuesday night. Excited parents, and I'm excited that you'll be speaking, Mayor,
Yes.
and that'll be great. And I definitely invite all of you and your friends. It'll be a great time. Thank you.
Yes, and I did a little review of the history of Villa Park in the local book, and Villa Park Elementary is actually the oldest school in Orange County. It was originally established as the Mountain View School in a private building kind of north in the area, northeast of the current location around 1881, and the school moved to the current campus at Center and Lincoln around 1883. And the little community served by the Mountain View School District also became known as Mountain View. In 1888, the community of Mountain View, as it was then known, decided to apply for a post office, but found that there was already a post office of that name in Northern California, and it was decided to name the community Villa Park. In 1910, the school district changed their name from Mountain View to Villa Park. So we've got a long history together as a community and a school. Certainly, that's an important structure and important shared history. Thank you.
And it's just going to be exciting. Again, you've got the old history right there. That bell will be there in the center of our campus. And it's exciting that we have it. All our parents are very excited about this.
Yep.
Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you very
support.
Thank you. Look forward to the dedication ceremony on the 29th. I would encourage all the residents that can make it to attend. It should be a lot of fun. Okay. Any other public comments?
No.
Okay, hearing none. We now move on to next agenda item is public hearings. And our first public hearing is the review to waive reading in full of all the ordinances and resolutions on the agenda. Staff, please give the staff report.
This is a regular city agenda item that we have. It's a waiver of the reading in full. It's in order to have efficient and expedited city council meetings. We basically would recommend that we approve the motion to waive the reading of full of all ordinances, resolutions, and meeting minutes on the agenda.
Council members, do you have any questions of staff?
No.
Okay. Is there anyone here to speak at this hearing? Seeing none. Council members, is there any discussion regarding this item?
I'll move approval of the motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Please record your vote.
Passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Our next hearing is the accessory dwelling unit ordinance. And staff, please give the staff report.
You'll recall that this is the actual second reading, but it is the third time the council has discussed it. In March, we originally proposed the reading of an ordinance that will help us comply with state law. We had gone through and made some changes to it, came back in April as far as the second reading. At that time, the council made some changes, so that became the first reading again. You will see the changes that are made consistent with the action taken on April 27th, Section 4, Section 2322.4. Item F and item L are both in red. Those were re-added back by action of the council on the April 27th. Tonight would represent the second and final reading. Should the council approve tonight, it would go into effect within 30 days. If the council should choose to amend those, this would revert back again to the first reading, and we would start the process again. So it is up to the pleasure of the council, but we're prepared to answer any questions. I think we've discussed this at some length. I would point out that, again, item F and item L in those two sections are added back in, and I would make sure that we read those carefully because as far as intent, of what the council may or may not want. This is the direction of the council last meeting. So those would be incorporated unless we hear otherwise.
Okay. Council members, do you have any questions of staff?
I don't have questions, but I do have discussion. So item F, and I'm going to read item F as it is. Owner occupancy required. Either the principal dwelling unit or the accessory dwelling unit shall be for the exclusive occupancy of the owner of the lot and shall not be rented or leased as long as the accessory dwelling unit exists. So if you have a granny flat, and we're going to use that term because we do use that term here,
Sure.
you will always have to live on that property as long as that granny flat exists. Then item L, short-term rental. No portion of a property containing an accessory unit may be rented for a term of less than 30 days. On this item here, we're going to allow short-term rentals on a single dwelling home, but we're not going to allow short-term rentals on a home that has a granny flat. So I want to make sure everyone understands what this means, because that's what this language says. Am I
Correct.
correct? Thank you. Now, if we want to not have short-term rentals, let's put that on the agenda. Not a problem. That's a business that we may not want to have, and I think we should put that on the agenda and take that up. But what this says, when you go back to F, it says that if we're fortunate enough to own a home here and we put a granny flat on it, you're going to make me live there. If I want to retire and move out, I want to rent it to my niece, I want to rent it to my nephew, I can't. So you've just taken my property rights away. When we first voted on this, we had a majority. Last month, Mayor, you switched your vote. I don't know why you switched your vote. And you didn't tell us why you switched your vote. And you put it back to this. So I'm kind of curious what happened, because you didn't give us any reason. What happened?
Well, after additional consideration, I conclude that short-term rentals fall into the category of commercial use of residential property.
I'm talking about item F.
Item F, yeah, and...
That's not short-term. I'm talking about item F. Item
okay.
F is not short-term.
The two are related.
Item F is rental. We have people who've rented in this city for 15-plus years. That is not a short-term rental. Item L is short-term. And the short-term rental, I understand that. There's no argument here on my side whether or not we should have short-term rentals in the city. But this particular item is dealing with our homes. I mean, and how, when we put a granny flat, most of us put it on there, quite frankly, for either a family member or to rent it. I mean, that's why people, that actually increases your value. We're not looking at short-term rentals, we're looking at month-to-month rentals. Mm-hmm. But if we want to take on the short-term rentals, I agree with that, but I'm not sure why it's in here, and certainly why we're taking away a right of somebody allowing them to rent their granny flat out or their own house? Why are we forcing the owner to stay there? So I want to make sure everybody understands what they're trying to change here. Because the reason we live in this city and we have big lots, so we can have a big house, we can have a granny flat. So if we want to get into rental contracts and rental restrictions, this is going to start that. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I had a comment. First off, I thought that we were following the state's lead in making it easier for people to do these granny flats, but we seem to be making it more difficult for them. Under item number F, I think I understand what the intent of it, but the wording seems rather awkward to me. It says, either principal dwelling unit or the accessory dwelling unit shall be the exclusive occupancy of the owner of the lot and shall not be rented or leased as long as the accessory dwelling unit exists. That reads to me that you can't rent either one of them. That's what it says, isn't it?
I had to read it several times. I
Because
I
thought the
understand. I did
intent
read it
was
like
that
that
you
the
couldn't
first
rent
time.
one of them out, but the way it's
Correct.
written, it appears you can't rent either one of them out.
You can rent one, you can't rent both to separate
What's that?
people. You can rent one, you can't rent both. So if you're the owner of a lot, you
No,
can't.
I'm saying what the wording says here. That's not what it says. Just read the wording. It says, either principal dwelling unit or accessory dwelling unit shall be the exclusive occupancy of the owner of the lot and shall not be rented or leased as long as the accessory dwelling unit exists. It doesn't distinguish between the two. It just say you can't rent them as long as the
Councilmember, I would offer that the wording, it said either, it doesn't say both. So by saying either, you're allowing it to be one or the other. It is exactly right that one of them can't be rented out, but it's either this or that shall serve.
You live in the
as a
front, live in
living.
the back, as long as the owner lives on the property.
Right. I believe we crossed this ground at the last meeting. I actually asked our city attorney this exact question, and I think that the answer hasn't changed. I appreciate my colleagues' concerns. I appreciate the clarification and the points that you're raising. But I think that the record will reflect, both at the last meeting and now, our city attorney and our city manager has further restated that you can rent it out, just the owner has to be on site. And I believe my colleague, Councilmember Pitts, raised some good points about that, and I would certainly want to give whatever time that he has to address this issue.
No, I made myself clear last time. Nothing's changed.
Well, again, I just object to taking people's property rights, and I feel that's what both of these do. You know, as Deanna indicated, if you're going to not have short-term rentals in the city, why should these units bear the brunt of it? If you want to not have short-term rentals, why not do it for the entire city? But that's just my opinion.
Okay. Any further comments or questions by the council? Okay. Is there anyone here to speak at this hearing? The public, okay.
If
there
I
a-
can have one more comment, I want to make sure I fully understand this. If you're at a single dwelling unit, you are allowed to have a short-term rental. Let's make it perfectly clear. As of right now, short-term rentals, if you have a single dwelling unit, if you are fortunate enough to have built yourself a granny flat in the back, you cannot.
As the municipal codes read, at this time, you're correct.
Okay.
No dispute.
Is there a motion on this matter?
I'd move that we approve as stated here.
Second?
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, please record your vote. And this a vote to approve the ordinance, the second reading of the
This will be the
ordinance.
second reading with the items in red inclusive.
Okay. Steve,
It
please read
passes
the
by
votes.
a 3-2 vote with Councilwoman Fasenelli and Councilman Nelson voting no.
Steve, on the note of the short-term rentals, and I appreciate Councilwoman Fasenelli's concerns, and I think they're, or the points that she's raising with respect to short-term rentals, and the fact that our code, up until literally right now, has been pretty much devoid of any discussion or regulation pertaining to them, I think that's something that we need to address. These are business interests in a residential community that are contrary to what our founders and what our current residents view Villa Park to be. They are homes that are commercial businesses established within a neighborhood community. Their customers are tourists that have little or no ties to our community. They're being advertised to sleep 20-plus residents. This is the type
Is this
of...
an agenda item?
No, it's not.
Allow me an opportunity to comment on this. Where I'm getting at is, I don't think that short-term rentals are appropriate now or in the future, and I think that that should be agendized the next meeting. And I appreciate if staff would look into what other cities have done to regulate these, and we can address the overarching issue. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. We will now consider the consent calendar, and all items on the consent calendar are considered routine and are usually enacted by one motion approving the recommended action listed on the agenda. Any member of the city council, staff, or the public may request an item to be removed from the consent calendar for discussion or separate action. Council members, are there any items that you would like to remove from the consent calendar?
I would like to pull item number 4.
Item number 4 is warrants and disbursements from April 13th to May 14th. Any others?
I'll move the remainder of the items.
So, second on that.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All, please vote.
Not flashing yet.
Wait a minute.
Yep, flash. There we go.
There it goes. You're too fast for us.
Oh.
That passes by a 5-0 vote.
Okay,
So items 5 through 8 are approved.
okay. Thank you. We'll now take up the item number 4. That was pulled for discussion, and this was the warrants and disbursements from April 13th to May 14th.
All right, I have some questions. Let's see, we have warrant number 23572, the Orange County Register for $4,500. And the reason I bring that one up is there, on the following page, I have 235550 to the Orange County Register for $6,100. So what are we
Those
paying
are-
the Register $11,000 for?
We are public notices for both RFPs and notifications of our ordinances. So anytime we pass an ordinance, we have to publicly notice, and anytime we publish an RFP, we subsequently use that as a public, as the presentation, so we're required to publish those.
How many ordinances did we publish? Or-
Had, I want to say, we had the animal care ordinances, we had the short-term rentals. I can get a list of them off the top of my
I mean,
head.
11,000, I don't think I've seen
I
that.
believe it's close to $4,000 to publish each time we come through.
Steve.
I've just not seen that.
I think Councilwoman Fassler brings up a good point. Is there another vehicle that may be more cost-effective? Give me, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm not looking for, I was just wanting to see what it was.
Right, it's for publications, we're not doing any advertisements, it's just simply
Well, I
we have
know,
to publish.
wow.
Publish the notifications, and then also we publish our bidding process. So when we get out for the road project, we went out for the slurry, the sewer project, when we go out for those, they have to go out through bid. And we have used that, we can certainly explore, and we'll look at those. I think the concern we have is trying to get circulation, and you've got a broad base where you get them to. So we also publish these online, but we also have been publishing these in
Are
the
we
register
required
for
to use the newspaper?
So you
I mean,
have-
we have public, we have internet, we have all kinds, different things to use. I mean, are we required to spend $11,000 on a newspaper?
So sadly, the law is probably 50 years behind the times, and you have to put certain notices in something called adjudicated newspapers. That's a term of art, so that a newspaper has been deemed, usually by a court order, to be sufficient for publication and purposes. I think for us, the OC Register is the only one. I don't think the Century is an adjudicated paper. That'd be cheaper, but we can check on that.
Richards is waving her
Yeah,
hand
and
saying no.
I mean, I,
So, sounds like the register's the
seemed
I
only
do,
an
one.
awful
I
lot.
like that, I mean, it needs to be, I mean, I do read those things in the paper, but we usually don't have a bill that is this high
Right.
in the same, I mean, I don't recall me ever seeing that. That's huge,
The council has been active with ordinances and RFPs, candidly, that's. what-
obviously.
Steve,
Yes, sir.
each time we did this
dwelling unit ordinance, we have to republish it?
I think anytime we make changes, we have to publish a change. Because
So
if it's for the first reading, so.
We dealt with this first time, we could have saved a lot of money then.
I don't think that's true, actually. I think we just did it the first time, but then we have to do it again with the official, so. I think we
Nice
just did
try.
it twice.
I think we
Troublemaker.
republished it. Did we? Okay,
Nice
I might
try.
have to do that.
Okay.
It's got to be one in every crowd.
Thank you.
All right. That's it. With that, I'll move it.
Okay,
Second.
got a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes by a 5-0 vote.
Thank you. Okay, we now move on to new business. Our first item of new business is the award of contract for the fiscal 17-18 street rehabilitation project. Staff, would you please provide the staff report?
You'll recall back in October of last year, well, in the budget, we adopted we set aside money to do a street rehabilitation project in 17-18. We subsequently gave a proposed list of projects or streets that we would be addressing, and that was approved by the city council on October 24th. And that subsequently went out to bid. We're now come back as a result. The bidding process was completed on May 9th. When they were opened, we had the total of 6 bids. RJ Noble was the lowest bid. The bids, I would note, they are very, very close to one another, which says that it was a pretty competitive process. And the fact that we had 6 bids is a very healthy bidding process. So RJ Noble is our recommended bidder. We've attached a copy of the financials. And in the other thing we did was we did an alternate bid. As a result, one of the thought was totally rebuilding Valley Avenue, and we talked about that was the additional, it was additional $231,000, which would put it significantly over the budget we had. Based on the high cost and the limited additional benefits, we feel that we can accomplish the work on Valley without having to do that alternative. We are not recommending the alternate. We're staying with the base bid. We also will be hiring a construction management firm to go along with this. So at this point, but that's a secondary issue. Right now, we're just recommending the RJ Noble be awarded the contract in the amount of $738,000 for the fiscal street rehabilitation project. And we would approve the plans and specs as proposed.
Okay. Council members, do
And
you
I'm
have any?
sorry, Akram, I think I can see him behind the podium, is there to answer any specific questions you may have.
Yes. Council members, do you have any questions of staff?
I do. So when this is approved, there's a lot of construction right now going on in the city. We are going to have a lot of trucks on Taft Avenue with the school going on. They're going to be having the football fields all renovated. We do have a lot going on. I'm concerned that we're going to start on the streets, and it's not time right now to do that because of now with spring coming in, you're seeing it already. So what is our time frame when we approve this, that we don't start working on streets at the same time that we have construction trucks going back and forth?
The plan was to move forward, and as we indicated in our budget last year, that this was intended to be completed by 17-18. Our hope was to have it all, well, the work will start in June, and the completion date would be some point in July. Akram, is that?
Would be around September
Oh, sorry.
completion.
I'm concerned. I'm watching what's going on around the city. There's a lot of construction going on right now. I mean, we just got notice of, some dirt being moved around up on Valley that we need to take some issue with right now. So I don't want to spend the money if we're going up with one truck with asphalt and we've got a cement truck coming down. I think that we need to do a little bit of plotting and planning to see what's going on what street before we actually start to spend some money with this contract. We need to fix the streets, but I think that I would like to see some sort of a chart as to where we're going to start, and then let's make sure that we're not having a building permit being issued at the same time or construction going on at that home at the same time. because it's not going to do us any good whatsoever to fix that street if we've got a bulldozer coming in and out of it. And that's what my concern is. Montana is absolutely awful at the end of the street. We all know that. It was there when we looked at it. But right now, there's a fence around a new house.
I think the first step is to award the contract so we can work with a contractor and set up a schedule. We don't have a schedule right now because we don't have a contractor. So
Okay.
we certainly have the ability, if the council should award that, and we'll keep that, come back with a schedule. But at this point, we haven't had the ability to sit down with a contractor and sort of project manage it out, if you will. I certainly appreciate your concerns. We don't want to have any more construction traffic than we have to. I would remind you, though, that one of the concerns we're always going to have is trash trucks are going to go regardless.
I'm not
And
talking
we're
about
gonna
trash
have-
trucks.
I-
I'm
but-
talking about construction, existing
and
construction.
I appreciate that, but I think what we need to do is get this contractor on board and be allowed to sit down with them and express your concerns and work through them. Candidly, the summer program, as far as the fields over there, was only recently brought up by the school district in the last couple months, and that was not something that was even brought to our attention when we programmed this out and did an RFP in the first place. So we kind of need to work with them. You're right, there's a lot going on, but I think the step is to get the contractor in place so we have the team in place to move forward.
Then will you come back to us then, I would ask that you come back to us with a contract before with a schedule of what streets before we start.
We certainly can do that. That will certainly delay the project's, the work. It's up to the council if they want us to
I
come
don't
back
think it
with
would,
that.
I mean, it wouldn't delay it. We've gone
I
this.
I
we've
think
gone
with all
this
due
long.
respect, that's a mistake, and I would want to ask a question before we even continue this discussion. Do Deanna and I need to recuse ourselves from this vote, given our relativity to where our home is, to where these projects are
Wait,
being
I'm
completed?
I'm in the middle of talking, and I'm not worried about
Oh,
it.
I'm sorry, I thought you
Excuse
were
me.
finished. My apologies. Go ahead.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I don't think it'll delay us any. I think it's a prudent decision. We have done work on the streets in the past without paying attention to whether or not there's been a building permit pulled at the house right in front of the street or not. I'm asking for a little prudency here, that when we do award the contract, we now review the streets that we're going to do and decide where they're going to go to make sure that we just don't have a whole lot of construction going down on that street. And I used Montana as a great example because that street is the worst street, if I remember right, it might be one more, in the city. And so when I, walk down there and I see a huge fence around the house at the end of the street, I know there's huge trucks that are going to go down there. So I don't think that, it's going to delay it that much when we rated this. We fix the streets as we need to fix them, but we may need to reprioritize where it goes, that's all.
I'm happy to do that.
My 2 cents, I think that, we pay you a lot of money, and we're hiring a construction manager. So I would assume that you will take into consideration everything she's telling you when you put the plan together and move forward with it.
Yeah.
But I'd also ask, too, that we notify and let the residents know which streets we're going to be working on, because I get asked a lot about the street repairs. I do. People are constantly asking me about streets all over the city. So we need to, now that we're awarding this contract, we also need to go out and tell folks where we plan to do the work.
Mayor, if I may interject to the Mayor Pro Tem's
Yes.
question. So Akromite, from the way I read this is actually some grinding. It's more than pure slurry seal, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that could trigger. So if you live on the street listed here or within 500 feet to be safe, you should recuse yourself.
Okay. I believe both Councilwoman Fasenelli as well as myself do live on streets that will be affected by this.
Okay? You should
Correct me if
recuse
I'm wrong.
yourself.
So they need to recuse themselves?
Yep.
I'm not going to recuse myself.
Okay. I will actually recuse myself because I've done so in the past, and I think that's the way that FPPC rules require us to do so. Is
I would
that
happily-
your legal opinion?
Well, yes.
Thank you.
Street improvements
I'm
of
gonna go
this nature can trigger a benefit to real property,
Okay.
yes.
I'm going to go ahead and step out of the room during this vote and during this discussion because I think that's full transparency, the most appropriate and legal thing to do. Thank you.
We'll pause for a moment. Do you have a,
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Robbie. I think the staff can figure this out as to what kind of schedule they need. It would be helpful if they provide us with a copy of that schedule when you do it and make it available to the public as well, because as Robbie indicated, the public does have an interest in knowing what we're going to do. But I don't think we should delay, till the next council meeting to do that. That you should go ahead and do it and just provide us the information when you have it.
Yes. Okay, and I also agree with Robbie and Bill. And I have full confidence that Akram and Bill Tarrant, our building official, and Steve will coordinate with each other to ensure that this goes smoothly.
And with that, Mayor, did you
I'm still speaking. I still have the floor, ma'am. Akram, I have one other question for you. I know in Valley, we've got a long linear subsidence problem. And how will that be dealt with? How will we determine if there's additional compaction, or how will that be compacted so that, when we do repave that will stay in good condition for a serviceable lifetime?
Yes. There's an existing sewer trench, which we had some problems with in the past. We fixed a couple of areas where we already had some cavities. It is our intention in this project is to excavate that trench and recompact it and put, make sure that we have a good compacted material in there before we grind and overlay the street.
Okay. Just roughly how deep is this trench that needs to be recompacted?
The trench varies, if I'm not mistaken, between about 6 to 8 feet
Okay.
deep.
Okay. Thank you. Councilwoman Fastenal, you have another comment?
I'm just concerned that, given that there's an election coming up, that I feel that you may be having some streets be done before they need to be done. And I want to make sure that the staff is aware of that. Because we've had streets that need to be done, and we have not touched any of it, and all of a sudden, there's a lot of discussion about streets being paved. So I just want to make that comment, that we should pay attention to what streets are being done, and that we do it with prudency.
Okay. Well, I'm confident that the streets were chosen by staff without undue influence.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion, or is there any further discussion?
I just want to let staff know anytime they pave my street, I'll gladly recuse myself. Always put mine on the list.
We have public comment.
No, you need public comment, I think, if there's.
Public, is there any public comment? I'm sorry, I apologize. Is there any public comment? Okay. So do I have a motion, or is there any further discussion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Please vote. Steve, please read the results.
That passes by a 4-0 vote with Mayor Pro Tem Rossini recusing himself.
Okay. We'll now wait for Councilman Rossini to return from recusal. Okay, our next item of new business is the approval of the 2018-19 Orange County Animal Care Notice of Intent. Staff, would you please give us a staff report?
Right. As you'll recall, the county provides us in Villa Park with both sheltering and field services and licensing services. As part of that, I want to say 2 years ago, in 2016, we signed a 10-year agreement with council approval for provision of animal care services, which were basically 2 agreements, the first of being the funding for the animal shelter, the second for providing services. That agreement for providing services includes sheltering and field services, requires that annually the county provide a notice of intent. And that notice of intent basically breaks out the costs of the services for the coming year and allows the city to indicate that we want to continue moving forward in that direction. Basically, the services include special services, sheltering services, barking dog complaints, et cetera, that we provide, that get provided by the county. So the county has, in fact, met their obligation in providing that to us in advance of the fiscal year. So we are getting a figure from them I would note that there is the cost increase overall in the county is going up about 5.07%. The way the formula works is actually based on actual services, based on a 5-year running average. So in essence, our services are going up our costs are going up 12.2%, but the overall animal care contract is going up 5%. So what that means is our people are using animal care more than ever. That's really what it boils down to over there. The way this works is if our people use services less, it's based on actual billings. So in the coming year, we may actually budget a certain amount and spend less. So I was talking to the county this morning, to Dylan Wright, and said, you guys may actually live within your budget. We may overspend ours, or you may overspend yours and we underspend ours. So it's kind of an actual driven, but this is a targeted number at this point. So our recommendation is to move forward in providing services. We believe we get very high quality services 24/7 from the county. I would suggest that a number of cities are looking at some cost containment measures, as is the county. In the event that the county, they have a new fee schedule, if the county drops or approves the fee structure that is being proposed, and that will be potentially sometime this summer, I think the staff can answer that. But if that were to be the case, instead of $34,000, we would probably be at a $28,000, which would actually be less than we pay this year. So if that fee structure were to go into place, that's what happened. That's up to the Board of Supervisors. That is not our decision at this point. County staff are here. Dylan Wright, the Director of Community Resources, Samantha Atkinson is here, the Interim Director of Animal Care, and Alan Young, the person who does all the numbers, is here. So they're available to answer any questions, and we'd recommend adoption of the NOI for fiscal year 18-19.
Okay, council members, do you have any questions of staff?
Seems like all the county services are going up.
I'm not there anymore, so I can agree.
I know.
Pass the buck, why don't you?
Is that the bus that I heard just roll over somebody?
Okay, hearing none, is there anyone here from the public that would like to comment on this item? Okay, hearing none, do you have a motion, or is there any further discussion?
I move approval of the item.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Please vote.
Wait, what's wrong with my buttons?
Councilman Nelson, I think we need
I punched it once.
Okay, Steve, please read the results.
that passes with a 5-0 vote. And I'd like to thank Dylan and Samantha and Alan for showing up today and being very patient as they sat there and were not needed, but I appreciate their coming.
Thank you for your time and thank you for what you do.
Okay, the next item of new business is the approval of the fiscal 18-19 recommended level of service and approval of a new five-year agreement for law enforcement services with the Orange County Sheriff Coroner. Staff, please provide the staff report.
This is we have a 5-year agreement that we're in the last year of it currently with the sheriff to provide law enforcement services. The sheriff has provided law enforcement to the city of Villa Park before it was even incorporated in 1962. We believe we get wonderful patrol, investigative services, and regional support services from the sheriff. I can say too that they are extremely responsive and they respond to our calls and provide public safety to Villa Park regardless of budget. They focus entirely on public safety for the residents. We get excellent services. That does come at a cost. And it is a primary, it's one of the largest items in our budget, if not the largest item in our budget. The maximum obligation will be increasing by a total of 8.35% compared to the prior contract. However, when you add all the elements in there, it comes out, and adjusting in our COPS funding, et cetera, we're coming at a 7.76% increase. One of the issues that's come up as a result of, sort of no good deed goes unpunished, as a result of sort of the study that we're doing, the sheriff has realized and the county has realized there's some services that were not being reimbursed, and now they have a charge for those. So when the cities are starting to say, how much are we paying for things, they're starting saying, well, that's a good question. Let's see how these are paid for. And One of the things, we have been the recipient of some services that have not been charged to us in the past. So the costs are going up for us. But again, I believe we're getting some very high-quality services. After some considerable arm wrestling, we started at about a 13% increase. We're now down to 7.75%. And I had some discussions with the lieutenant. We would be actually about 7.5%, but you recall, we added $4,000 expense related to additional services on the 4th of July. So if you drop that 4,000 down, we're down to 7.5%. Again, this is higher than I would like it to be, but unfortunately, that is the cost of doing business at this point, and I would recommend approval. Again, we get excellent quality services. Captain Puckett is here to answer questions as well, should you have any questions.
Okay. Council members, do you have any questions of staff?
Yeah, I had a question. This is a 5-year contract, but we have the price for the first year, and it's negotiated each year?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So it's subject to, we have the ability to get out of it if we had to, and so does the county.
Well,
But
it's a
a
5-year
budgetary
contract, but
approval.
we have pricing on it for the first year?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So Mayor, if I would maybe speak to that point, yeah, so it's my understanding the county sort of has a policy in place now where all of these types of contracts, they do 5-year contracts because of the sort of the ability to plan accordingly, so that's from Sheriff Hutchins. Two, as far as the costs, the way these types of contracts work under the law is that the county can only charge their cost recovery, right? So that's what the law says they have to do. So there is a certain amount of flexibility. It's odd in the contract, right? And there's language in there about, well, the cost is dependent upon their labor costs in future years in their negotiations with their labor unions. Well, that's because if they don't know the cost yet, that is going to be whatever the cost is, and we'll have to pay it. So there's no real ability to negotiate in the real sense of the word. I mean, the only way you really control cost is by, service level analysis and the services you get. So to answer your question, you're right. There is it's odd in that sense, but pursuant to law, that's sort of how these contracts have to work.
But on that question, how do we know that we actually get charged costs? Do we have a right to audit them?
Yeah, they do
Well-
provide us an accounting detail, and they make their books very much available to us. They provide us a detailed accounting that Frank has an opportunity to review, which relates specifically to staff deployment, timesheets, et cetera. So it all locks back into actual deployment of staff and utilization. Captain Puckett, do you want to add anything to that?
No, this is unique because we've enjoyed a great relationship with the city for over 60 years. And while it is unfortunate the costs go up, like we were talking about, this is a pass-through cost to the county. The sheriff's department by law makes no money off of any of our contracts. And so we try to keep the costs as low as possible, but any audit, within our financial team down here to open up the books and look at it. But I think this is done on a monthly basis, and your team here is aware of all of the costs at the most finite detail available.
And as to Mayor Nelson's point, I mean, that is the question.
Councilman Nelson.
I called you back? Oh, I apologize to both of you. Councilman Nelson's point, I mean, that's one of the things, questions about, are we getting charged the real costs? That in part triggered the police services study that's currently being done.
Okay.
One question.
Yes.
Given the fact that this is dependent upon labor costs, are the sheriff's deputies union in the midst of contract negotiations, or are they, it's my understanding, they've already signed a new contract and they're in that contract for a number of years now, and that would control, thereby somewhat control
I think
costs.
there's some reopener opportunities there, and with that, and then the other thing is the sheriff contract costs are for direct payouts. There's also pension issues that are not resolved. For instance, pension rates aren't established by OSERS until each year. So those rates aren't established. Well, so they may know the cost of a deputy salary-wise. They don't know the cost of the pension associated with that or the medical benefit that may be related to that as well. So those have to be addressed as each year goes on. So while we do know, and there are some reopener opportunities, I don't know where they stand with contracts at this point with the Deputies Association.
So I believe the largest association, AOCDS, will be going into contract negotiations later this year.
Right.
I don't have a specific date. I think what's interesting for the city is and we brought this up, traditionally, if a city is having trouble meeting its cost obligations for the contract, we tinker with the service levels. You can't tinker with the service levels of Villa Park
No.
because you only have one deputy on at any
Right.
given time. So it'd be like saying, we don't want police coverage on Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Right.
So you have the lowest police services contract for all of the contract cities.
Right.
So I can't envision a way to tinker with it, other than
Nor
what we've
can
done,
I.
which is a reduction of overtime.
Right.
But unfortunately, the cost is the cost, so I don't say that flippant.
No, and I know, and we've had discussions offline about this, and I appreciate your candor with it. I only bring this up so that there are, frankly, no future surprises for council members or residents or staff in the future that this number unfortunately may vary, so to speak.
Yes.
We all hope it doesn't, but that's a reality that we may face given the pension concerns and contract negotiations and other issues. So I bring that point up just to highlight that, and I appreciate, I think every member of this dais has probably had personally, if not professionally, contact with the Sheriff's Department, and we do receive excellent service, given what we pay, and I want to thank you for that.
I have some comments. There are areas, though, that we can try to keep our costs down or assist in it not going as high as it does now. Some of those areas are with our community events, and I mean, if they're, I'm all community here, but we have added a lot of events lately. You have cities such as Anaheim, canceling 4th of July parades, and it's because of, enforcement services, and we know that. So we're going to need to start to look at all of our community events to see what we might want to give up, because the foundation does not reimburse us for that. And not that I want to take their money, because I don't. They don't have a lot of money, but we might have to have one less parade, because we have added a lot lately. So that's something I think that conversation needs to take place with the chairman of the foundation and look at the events that are there, because we can't continue to have that, as well as have the sheriff here for 2 weeks in a row having the dad's camp out one Friday at Villa Park Elementary and one Friday over at Serrano, which, yes, that has not happened before, but it's happening now, and now we're getting a huge increase. In addition, we wanted to put more patrol for our 4th of July, and I understand that we did that, but we're covering $2,000 of the cost.
Yes.
We did not carry that forward to those stands. We should have done that. I love having the schools make the money. I love the Rotary making the money. But when it costs us $5,000 more, they should be paying that in their permit, and they only paid half of it. So that's in here. So there are areas that we can keep our costs down, and I think we're going to need to be a little more diligent this year to do that. We have a good time in the city, but we might have to get rid of one small parade, or possibly hire a private security firm to be able to use that. So maybe we can have some discussion there. We love having you, but it comes at a cost. Thank you. I'd rather have you protect me than lead the Santa parade. How's that?
Steve, unless I'm mistaken, thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Mayor. Unless I'm mistaken, we're going to try to employ more reserves and
There's a number
feature
of
more
strategies,
volunteers.
and these are things we've talked about. For special events, one of the things I've talked to the lieutenant about, I don't know if I'm sure he's briefed the captain because he's a good subordinate. But anyway, I think in essence, we've talked about asking for a deployment plan for our special events prior to those events, so that we can understand, like the councilwoman says, what those costs are and weigh in on those and say, that's getting pretty pricey for a parade, or you know what, we don't need 5 deputies to do the 4th of July parade. We might be able to not afford 5 deputies. We may need to sort of say, let's use reserves or whatever. So I think that's sort of getting at what the councilwoman says. We need to look at those, but an event by event discussion is what we're having at this point, and the lieutenant's agreed in advance so we can have some discussion, meaningful discussion. We'll talk about that, and whether that means less staff, slightly less staff, or reserves, whatever the case may be. For the general public, we do not pay for reserves, but they need to be supervised by deputies, which we do pay for. So we can't do something entirely with reserves And as much as they are great and they do wonderful service, they need to have a deputy supervising them, correct?
Well, and we've also, and you know, how, I know that this council has talked about parking tickets and having revenue for their parking tickets. We have fines for alarms that constantly go off, because as soon as the alarm goes off, certainly the sheriff department is very good and does, but we do have repeat alarms that go off. When and how do we charge our residents for that? Because right now, we don't. So I know that those are already on the books, and we might need to just look at our procedures and start to, I know that's up to you to find, but I do know that the alarms go off quite a bit, and it does take up a lot of time. And I know that you got to go out with 2 people, so it's not just one person. So we might need to look at what's going on there to try to keep the cost down too.
Thank you.
Okay, I think Robbie.
I have a question and a comment rolled in one. When I looked at the information today, I noticed there's a line item in there for crossing guards for $9,000. Can you tell me, because we've been advocates, or I have been an advocate for more crossing guard activity over here on Villa Park Road? What does that $9,000 get us?
pays for one crossing guard for 9 months, and that's at Nichols and Taft, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right?
Yes, and we pay,
We
that's
pay-
added to
that's-
the contract. It's not the, if I remember correctly, when we renegotiated it. It's not part of the,
It's part of the
Senate,
cost.
it's part of the cost.
Yes.
But, I mean, but we pay for it. We
We
could
pay
take it
for it.
out, we could take it out if we wanted to. If we wanted another one, we'd have to add another $9,000.
$9,000. It's $1,000
That's
a
how it
month
works.
when you add it up.
I understand. I'm just curious about how many bodies that
Pays for
$9,000.
right now one.
Okay. Because I think, over here on Villa Park Road, we need something there during the school year. But if that's, Nichols is more important, then we'll,
I
I'll
think
leave
we're
that up
looking,
to you.
Kenley, and I've talked to them, we're looking at another potential option for pedestrian crossing at at Villa Park Road, which would allow us, and it would be less expensive, but it would be something that actually would attract a lot more attention than a crossing guard themselves. So we're looking at some options there, and that would be sort of a pedestrian crossing signal device that would allow us, provide more safety. And that's something I've discussed with the LEAC group, and we've raised that issue. The installation of a battery-operated thing would be like half the cost. It'd be like $4,500, including installation, and that's a one-time cost. So we're looking at that. I have talked to some other city managers, and they are very satisfied with that. It sort of is a trend. We've looked at crossing the flags that go across, but those are.
Yeah, I've seen them over here on Prospect, the flashing lights and,
Yeah,
I've seen
something
it.
like that. Actually, some of the city managers have said that's more effective than a crossing guard standing out there, because it's very visible, it's high, it tracks your light. So we're
Okay.
looking at that type of thing, but I agree that something does need to be done on Villa Park Road, and we certainly I'm looking to move forward in that direction.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments or questions by the council? Is there anyone here from the public that would like to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none. Do you have a motion, or is there any
So
further
moved.
discussion? Got a
Second.
motion? Second? Please record your vote.
That passes by a 5-0 vote.
Thank you. Okay, our next item of new business is the consideration of resolutions pertaining to the general municipal election on Tuesday, November 6, 2018. Mayor, staff, please give the staff report.
You are all obviously aware that 3 city council seats, their terms expire at the end of this year, calendar year. So as a result, we need to start the process to call the election, which is the first thing, is to call the election for 3 seats. The second resolution, which we'll be required to do, is require the candidate statements be established, the rules be set. And the third is the requesting that the election be consolidated with the statewide election on November 6th, with the statewide general election. So there's 3 separate resolutions that basically start the election process for this coming year. We would recommend approval, and we would subsequently, approval with this will notify the county registrar of voters, who will then incorporate the required actions to get us on the ballot, include us in the coming election.
Okay, council members, do you have any questions of staff? Okay, hearing none, is there anyone here from the public that would like to comment on this item? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion, or is there any
So
further
moved.
discussion? Got a motion?
Second.
A second?
Are we moving all three in one motion?
Is that the motion?
For all three?
It's fine.
Okay.
Fine with you?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, for all three, please cast your vote.
That passes by a 5-0 vote.
Our last item of new business is the approval of an agreement with Gruber and Associates for financial audit services for fiscal 17-18 through fiscal 19-20. Staff, please give the staff report.
You recall that the city had used a single audit firm for a number of years, and in 2015 decided it was time to go out for bid. In 2015, they did an RFP process and gave a 3-year contract to Gruber and Associates. That current contract expires at the end of this year. It has actually expired. So in auditing our fiscal year 17-18, which is this coming July, we did another RFP process. We had 2 replies. Both of the firms are experienced. Both of them have significant local government experience within Orange County and have very good references. The cost differential is significant, and for that reason, we are recommending our current provider, Gruber and Associates, get the contract. With that, I would ask for approval by the council for a 3-year contract, which would be beginning this July, which would cover fiscal year 17-18 through fiscal year 19-20.
Thank you. Council members, do you have any questions of staff? Hearing none, is there anyone here from the public that would like to comment on this item? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please vote.
That passes by a 5-0 vote.
Thank you.
You can go eat dinner now. They've been here a long time.
Okay. Okay, city manager report.
Thank you.
Now we will discuss the city manager report. Steve?
Item number 14 is the monthly city manager report. New items are stated in red. The summary status is in the far right, either red or green, green being completed, red pending. In the interest of time, we're available to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions from council? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. Our next item is mayor and council member matters. The first item of mayor and council member matters is the city manager goals for 2018-19. Is there a report or?
I'm going to defer to Steve on this.
You'll recall back in August that the city council adopted an evaluation process. As part of that process, we conducted a closed session, and during this last March. And during that closed session, the council appointed a subcommittee to develop goals, measurable goals, hopefully, that I would have for the next year. That ad hoc committee and I have met on several occasions, and as a result, there is a list. You'll see that attached to the staff report. I would defer to them, but I'm in concurrence that we would approve those items today, so I know what I'm doing.
Okay. Council members, do you have any questions of staff? Okay. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none. Do I have a motion?
I have a comment. I want to compliment the ad hoc committee. I think they did a really excellent job on the goals. Although I do have a question on one. If we facilitate the opt-out of Senate Bill 54, he's not going to be able to accomplish that.
What? Which one? I'm sorry.
Facilitate the
Facilitate
opt-out of Senate Bill
opting out.
54.
We passed a resolution last month,
Yeah,
didn't we?
we more or less already have done that.
We've done that.
To the extent that Villa Park can.
That's not opting out. That's to the extent that we, right, to the extent that we can. But we said we can't opt out of a law.
Well,
I'm just saying we had to give him goals that are attainable. If you think he's achieved that, then that's fine.
I think he's achieved
Okay,
that.
all right.
I agree with the Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, all right. I'm fine with that if you think it's achieved. I just don't want to
Yes.
give him something that he can't achieve.
And likewise Todd,
Okay.
to his
My,
degree.
my comment is on the last page that there's a lot, when it comes to beautifying our city here, there's a lot of words here saying that you need to work with outside entities as our nonprofits in here. For example, work with the foundation to identify private funding sources. I don't think it's our city manager's job to work with the 501c3, our foundation, to find private funding. That we hire him to run the city. We have a foundation and we have a chairman there who's quite capable of doing that, and they have a board there also. And also to work with the Women's League and the Scouts and the Rotaries to renovate city property. Those are not the goals of the Scouts or the Women's League or the Rotary to renovate city property. The Rotary has its own goals, which are humanitarian. The Scouts have theirs, the Women's League has theirs. And it's not to give money back to the city. We pay our taxes, and it's our job to do that. So I do have some issue here because it's not for us to go to outside entities to take their money. And I think it really sets it sets a bad precedent, quite frankly. Instead of being a partner with them and enjoying the community and the good that those organizations are doing, it looks like we're sitting there with our hands open saying, please give me your money. And I don't think the Boy Scouts are going to particularly care for that when they're sitting out there selling popcorn and having to give the city the money. That's kind of like a tax. So that does not sit well with me right here. So everything else looks like it was textbook, so.
Councilman Rossini?
I appreciate your comment on that matter. I think maybe you're taking that a little too literally. Nobody is going to ask them, hey, can you donate to the city coffers? What there is the potential for and what has gone on in Villa Park's history in the past are public-private partnerships, the planting of trees, scout projects. There are scout projects all across Orange County where Scouts have created public structures for folks to enjoy, to receive their Eagle Scout badges. And I think that's just a little too literal, but I do appreciate the support on the rest of the matters, and I just wanted to clarify that, but thank you.
Okay. Are there any other comments by council?
I just want to thank Robbie. I want to thank Robbie for participating in this process with me. I think he did a fantastic job with some of his ideas, and I think the collaboration that we put forward will hopefully make Steve's job a little bit easier and benefit all residents. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you both, actually.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second?
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Please vote.
That passes by a 4-1 vote with Councilwoman Fasenelli voting no.
Okay, now's the time to hear individual council member information items. Councilman Pitts, would you begin, please?
Not a lot of meetings attended this past month, but I will say I had the opportunity, thanks to our city manager, to attend a briefing and a tour of the Orange County Sheriff's Emergency Operations Center up on the hill up here. That is truly a great place. I mean, the technology, the people, the whole environment is, I mean, I love the collaboration that goes on in that facility amongst the people. I watched, because I've been involved in 911 centers on non-emergency and emergency medical response in the past, and I can see how well these people work together. I was a little concerned that it's kind of confined up on top of the hill, surrounded by a bunch of dry grass. But they said they'd hunker down in the event something would happen. So, but my hat's off to that entire organization. Thank them. I was fortunate enough to attend with 8 or 9 folks from the county CEO's office, and they were quite thrilled about what they saw as well, because I think that was the first time they'd had the opportunity to do it. But every time you pick up the phone and call 911, those folks answer that call and handle it with true professionalism. And I've experienced it myself because I've called several times, not from an E911 perspective, but from a non-emergency perspective where I felt like we needed help from the sheriff's department. And they were very, very professional in handling the calls and so forth. So pass along my thanks and appreciate that. And thank you, Steve, for setting it up for me. It was quite educational, and I encourage anyone else who has the opportunity to go see it because it'll make you feel good about, you know, the work that they're doing. That's all I have.
Great view from up there, isn't it?
Yeah, oh, it's absolutely gorgeous when you go up the road, but it's just there are no windows, so you can't see out. It's completely enclosed, and but I will say in the center where they take the calls, it's all natural light. So and they can adjust the light upwards and downwards based on the louvers in the roof. So it's really cool. And they do a lot of creative things for their employees up there that I think is kind of cool. Treadmills and all kinds of things at their desk. You've got the desks that go up and down, you know. So they take a lot of care for their employees up there. So it's cool.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Nelson?
Well, I don't have anything to report relating to the city, but I do have a personal announcement. I received an early Father's Day gift from my youngest son, Brandon Nelson. Brandon was raised here in Villa Park, went to Serrano Elementary, Sarah Villa Middle School, and graduated from Villa Park High School. For the last several years, Brandon's been Vice President and Associate General Counsel for JetBlue Airlines. Last week, when JetBlue's Executive Vice President, General Counsel, and Corporate Secretary announced his retirement, Brandon was named Acting General Counsel and Corporate Secretary for JetBlue Airlines. I attribute Brandon's success to his upbringing here in Villa Park and the excellent academic background he got here in Villa Park schools.
Congratulations.
Nice.
Congratulations.
And he's a pretty young guy, too, isn't he, to have that position?
He's 43.
Yeah. Amazing. Impressive. Okay, Councilman Fasenelli?
Nothing further.
Councilman Rossini?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Amongst the weekly meetings that I attended, or I should say in addition to the weekly meetings I attended with the city manager, I also attended, as I previously mentioned, the 2 meetings with the Orange County Fire Authority, which I've already reported on, and was able to collaborate and partner with Councilman Pitts on these city manager goals. And again, I just wanted to say thank you, written here on my notes so I wouldn't forget, to thank Robbie for his efforts. I think he had some fantastic ideas, and he did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
And last but not least, kind of a personal matter, kind of a city matter. On May 18th, I participated in the annual Parents and Coaches Adult Softball Tournament for the Villa Park Little League. I'm very pleased to report no injuries for myself, at least not significant. Went 3 for 4. Our team won, but most importantly, all the parents had a great time. The kids that were in attendance saw their parents having a great time. It was a co-ed softball game, and it was a blast. We're hopeful that maybe next year will be on a Sunday. We can have more participants and more teams. I wanted to wrap up my comments by just thanking the Villa Park Little League Board for all that they do. It was a fantastic, successful year, and I think I'll save next meeting for individual congratulations for each team, but thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll conclude with my reports. On April 27th, I attended the Sheriff's Advisory Council's 30th Annual Medal of Valor presentation luncheon with council members Rossini and Fasenelli. And this event honors the outstanding accomplishments of the officers of the Sheriff's Department. At this luncheon, 27 medals were awarded for life-saving, merit, courage, and distinguished deputy. On April 28th, I was one of 27 elected officials from Southern California that participated in the 16th annual Donate Life Run Walk Mayorathon event at Cal State Fullerton. This event promotes tissue and organ donation, and this was an extremely successful event supporting a great cause with over 14,000 participants. I never heard of it before, but attending it was pretty amazing. It was the campus of Cal State Fullerton was just packed. On May 3rd and 4th, I participated in the Southern California Association of Governments, or SCAG, Regional Conference with Council Member Fasinelli also attended as our city's delegate. On May 12th, I attended the Villa Park High School Auto Show and presented the Mayor's Award Trophy to the light green 1954 Buick Skylark convertible owned by Steve Gulsvig of Villa Park. I must admit, it was love at first sight. Only 836 Buick Skylarks were produced in 1954, so not only is this a beautiful car, it's also rare. And it was also no surprise to me that the car was awarded Best of Show by the event judge. So the Buick Skylark got both Mayor's Award and Best of Show. Anyway, Steve invited me to stop by for a private showing, and I can't wait. On May 17th, I participated in the Infrastructure Management Advisory Committee, and I reported on that earlier. On May 17th, I participated in the City Selection Committee. At this meeting, representatives on various boards, commissions, and committees addressing countywide programs were selected. And of course, as was described earlier, next Tuesday, May 29th, I will participate in the dedication of the bell from the historic school building at Villa Park Elementary. Our reception will begin at 5:30, and the dedication ceremony will begin at 6 o'clock, and the public is invited. Hope to see a lot of you there. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Before we adjourn, I just want to say that we will have our next, second and last budget workshop on June 5th at 6 o'clock. I just want to note that. It'll be on the website, but it's not a regular meeting. It'll be a special city council meeting.
Thank you. Okay.
So moved.
Okay. Okay. We're adjourned.
Congratulations on your son.
Okay.
That is